Hey, it's John Nolan here. One of the most important things in my life is the health and the well-being of my family. And one of the products that we absolutely love to use and have had amazing results with is Z-Stack. It's Dr. Zelenko's Immunobooster, and it really does the job absolutely well. Now, as most of you know, Dr. Zelenko recently passed away, but he's left behind a legacy with Z-Stack and his other products, and also the Dr. Zelenko Freedom Foundation. So every time you purchase Z-Stack to help boost your immune system and the immune system of your family, 10% of the profits will also automatically go to the Freedom Foundation. So I encourage you to check it out, Z-Stack by Dr. Zelenko. Use the link and the coupon code in the description, save, and also help the foundation. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for joining us again for an inspired conversation. And today we're super excited to welcome back one of our heroes. You could call him the godfather of the truth and freedom movement. And thank you so much for coming back, David Icke. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, mate.
It's our honor and pleasure. David, today's a special day. Your new book, The Trap, is out, and you've been writing like crazy as far as I know. I've been getting emails from your people. David is still writing. David is working on this book, and it's finished and out today. What can we expect from The Trap? I can only assume another blockbuster and absolute amazing book.
It's called The Trap, and it's subtitled What It Is, How It Works, and How We Escape Its Illusions. And, you know, I think the biggest trap, if you like, that researchers and seekers of truth can fall into is reaching at any point the idea that they've got it. We're not awake, we're awakening. So when people say, I woke up, yes, okay, but you're still awakening after that. Because as Socrates said in ancient Greece, or was supposed to have done, wisdom is knowing how little we know. And so I've always gone on that basis that whatever we think we know, there's always more to know. I mean, that's the big truth that's without question true. And so I've gone on going deeper in the rabbit hole and asking where all this is coming from, what's going on in the world today. Because I concluded a very long time ago, back in the 1990s, when I was researching this and putting together the names, dates, places level of information, that there's no way it could be orchestrated purely by people sitting around the table deciding their next move. It's much bigger than that. So how big? Where does it go? Where does it come from? And the sequence of my life since I had my initial head blown off awakening in 1991, it was a pursuit of where this came from. And it was the knowledge that what we see and therefore think we know about what's going on is only a fractional part of what there is to know. And so what I've done over the last 32 years is span out from just the daily news of events and what's happening, what Klaus Schwab has said or Gates has said or any of these people. And I want to know what's behind them. And so I've been on this journey going deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole that started off basically looking at the names, dates, places, this world, what can be seen level. And then I went deeper and I realized that beyond the Gateses and the Schwabs and the what I call the global cult, the global secret society network through which this is all orchestrated, was a non-human force that was manipulating human society to its own ends. And I think that absolutely since the COVID era began, more and more people have started to realize, I've certainly experienced and noticed this, that the agenda that's unfolding is anti-human. Every area of life that is essential to humans, whether it's water, whether it's food, whether it's the atmosphere that's being changed by technologically generated radiation, even the nature of the body being manipulated by these synthetic mRNA, all these different essential areas of human life are being targeted. And thus it's an anti-human agenda. And a lot more people than ever before, far more, are starting to say, well, maybe that's because, as that mad guy Icke says, behind this is a non-human force. So that's where I was looking at until the last year, when I started to go deeper, and what turned out was the trap. And I guess to start is to go back to just after the turn of the millennium, when I just got so powerfully, a kind of knowing out of nowhere that we live in a simulation. The technologically massively advanced version of a virtual reality computer game. And what came to me equally strongly was that the limits of the simulation at this level that we're aware of is the speed of light. And 20 years later, in the spring of 2021, there was an article in the mainstream scientific magazine, Scientific American, by a scientist, academic, concluding, he said, that he believed we live in a simulation, and he believed that the limits of it were the speed of light, which is what I said 20 years before. And the way he explained it, and I think he's absolutely right, is that the limit of what we call the speed of light is the processing speed of the simulation. And so if you are only aware and you're mesmerized by the simulation and all the information that it's feeding us, because it's not a physical construct simulation, it's an information simulation, just like putting a headset on. Your brain is being fed information, your senses are being fed information, and they give you a different reality. Something I said way back again around the turn of the millennium was that what we call the laws of physics are actually the rules of the simulation that have been encoded into it. That's one reason why when near-death experiencers leave the body, they experience a different reality. And I'll come to that in a minute, because that's very much part of what's in the trap. But it's a very different reality. And clearly from what's described, the laws of physics are very different to what they are in this level that we experience through the five senses, what I call body-mind. And this writer of this Scientific American article was making the same point 20 years later, that the laws of physics, as we call them, are actually just the encoded rules of the simulation. And as he pointed out quite rightly again, it's that you can encode whatever rules and laws that you want in your game, but you're still going to be limited by the processing speed of the computer system or whatever you're working with. And that's what he said was the speed of light. So I was long exploring all this side of things. And then in the last couple of years, as I explain in the book, I mean, it's a long story, fascinating story, mind. A lot of things have been happening to me that have been pointing me in a very clear direction. And it's this, that if we break up the different levels of reality and make it real simple, let's call this world of the seen what we call the human world. Let's call it the third dimension. There are other dimensions beyond that. Now, people often, when they think of other dimensions, they think, well, other dimensions are way out there, like way out there. And of course, in frequency terms, compared with the frequency here, compared with the frequency there, they are way out there, some of them. They really are, because this is a low frequency world. But there are other frequency bands, call them dimensions, which are very much closer to this one. And there's one which the spiritual arena and ancient cultures and etc. together, they call it the astral. I call it in the book the astral, yes, but I call it the fourth dimension. And then there's beyond that, there's what I call in the book the fifth dimension, and that is beyond the simulation. That is outside the simulation. And so if you awaken, this is what I think awakening is. If you awaken to expand your consciousness beyond the third dimension, beyond the fourth dimension, especially the lower ends of it, which I'll come to in a second, and you start to enter the realms of call it the fifth dimension, keep it simple, you're then tapping in to information, knowledge, awareness, knowing that is not being tampered with by the simulation. And that's what we call waking up. That's when people start to see things. Why didn't I see it before? Because you were within the simulated, manipulated reality before. So you might note that I'm talking about the simulation in the third dimension, but I'm also talking about going above the fourth dimension, because that certainly a significant part of it, at least, is also in the simulation. So what this series of amazing synchronicities in my life in the last 2 years have pointed me to is that this reality we can see is being manipulated, and this simulation controlled by and created by and projected from the lower levels of the fourth dimension, the lower astral, as the spiritual community would call it. And the lower astral is the realm of demons, demonic consciousness, distorted consciousness, what people call lost souls. It's a mess. It's very low vibrational, and it's very dark, and it's very confusing, and it's very chaotic. The more that I've followed the clues and uncovered more and more about this, that so clear it is that this world is being manipulated from those lower levels of what people call the astral, the fourth dimension, which means that this cult that I've been exposing for 30 years, which is behind world events and the direction of the world and the chaos that's unfolding, is actually an extension, an expression of this lower astral consciousness and the entities that reside there. And so I then started looking at what we call reincarnation, because my question then was, when I looked at the simulation part of this and how so many people in the simulation, because of the way it's manipulated, don't have a nice time. I mean, forget the people in the Western world that are having an okay time. Vast numbers of people in the Western world are not. But up to this point, when all the systematic destruction of society is underway and the economy, but up to that point, quite a few people in the West they'd think that we're having a decent life. But you travel, you go to South America, you go to Central America, you go to the Middle East, you go to Africa, you go to vast parts of Asia. A lot of those people are not having a good time, and they're not having a life that they'd really like to live. So why would people, or consciousness, souls, if you like, want to come here for any reason